All right. Good afternoon. I will start off with some sad news to report from the Central African Republic. Early this morning, the temporary base of the United Nations mission in Tagbara, which is about 60 kilometers northeast of Bambari, was attacked by anti-Balaka fighters. UN peacekeepers fired back, and after several hours of exchange of fire, one peacekeeper was killed and 11 others were injured. The United Nations mission has deployed reinforcements in Tagbara. The Secretary General extends his condolences to the family of the fallen peacekeepers and wishes a speedy recovery to those injured. We do expect a fuller statement out on this shortly. Separately, the mission in the Central African Republic later discovered the bodies of 21 civilians, including 4 women and 4 children in Tagbara. Yesterday evening, UN peacekeepers had been informed that the UPC group, Unité pour la Centrafrique, had detained 23 people, including 13 women and 3 children. These people were released peacefully to the UN mission and spent the night at the UN temporary base to guarantee their safety. The UN mission strongly condemns all of these events. The mission also reports that on Saturday, United Nations peacekeepers launched a joint operation with the Central African Armed Forces, during which they rescued 15 people who had been taken hostage by the Lord's Resistance Army. 15 Central Africans had been taken hostage 15 Central Africans had been taken hostage in the village of Kumbu near the town of Obo in the morning. And in Geneva today, the Secretary General announced that more than $2 billion were pledged to support the humanitarian response in Yemen. He stressed that humanitarian resources are very important, but they are not enough. It is essential that they reach the people in need, he added. And for that, we need unrestricted access into Yemen, unrestricted access everywhere inside Yemen, and we need all parties to the conflict to respect international humanitarian law and to protect civilians. Above all, the Secretary General said we need serious political process to lead to a political solution. In his remarks at the beginning of the conference, he recalled that Yemen is the world's worst humanitarian crisis, with more than 22 million people, 3/4 of the population, in need of humanitarian aid and protection. The Secretary General stressed that a negotiated political settlement through inclusive intra-Yemeni dialogue is the only solution, and he urged all the parties to engage with his new special envoy, Martin Griffiths, and that without delay. His remarks, as well as the transcript of his press encounter in Geneva, are all available, and the Secretary General is now on his way back to New York, where we expect him later tonight. And meanwhile, on the ground in Yemen, humanitarian partners are already reaching millions of people across the country this year. As of March 1st, the World Food Program had reached over 6 million people with emergency food assistance. UNICEF and partners ensured access to safe drinking water for nearly 2 million people by rehabilitating urban water systems and rural water schemes, in addition to trucking safe drinking water directly to nearly 375,000 of the most vulnerable internally displaced people. UNICEF, the World Health Organization, and Yemeni institutions worked together to vaccinate 2.7 million children against diphtheria, which has reemerged in Yemen for the first time since 1982. UNICEF and partners have likewise treated nearly 40,000 acutely malnourished children, including more than 11,000 severe cases. Lastly, the UN refugee agencies and its partners also provided emergency shelters or essential household items to 60,000 people newly displaced by recent fighting in Hodeidah and Taiz area. Turning to Syria, our humanitarian colleagues tell us that a UN interagency team conducted an assessment mission to Raqqa on April 1st. Despite high level of unexploded ordinances on the ground, an estimated 100,000 people have reportedly returned to Raqqa. The team observed an extremely high level of destruction, with nearly 70% of buildings destroyed or damaged, according to the local council. Many services, such as water, electricity, and health, are absent or severely limited. Some schools have resumed, though they are lacking school materials and other supplies. Local non-governmental organization partners supported by UN agencies are providing assistance to those in need in the city. The UN and its partners are currently working on responding to gaps and priorities needed to strengthen the provisions of aids and basic services. Back here, the Undersecretary General for Peacekeeping Operations, Jean-Pierre Lacroix, briefed the Security Council this morning. He highlighted an overall stable environment in the country, stressing that as UN peacekeeping operations, the UN mission for justice support in Haiti can only be effective if it has a sound relationship with the Haitian government and the people based on solidarity and mutual respect. And mutual trust, excuse me. While acknowledging that this relationship could have been smoother, Mr. Lacroix said he was also encouraged by recent indications of a closer substantive convergence of national and UN priorities. Mr. Lacroix also said that alongside opportunities, we need to keep in mind that challenges and risks remain, especially as we prepare for a transition from peacekeeping to development. He added that he looked forward to a close collaboration with the Haitian government and other partners to ensure the successes of this transition, with benchmarks for an exit strategy weaving together an ambitious but flexible framework. We're determined to ensure, within the overall time frame already indicated by the Council, that MINUJUST will be the last peacekeeping operation deployed to Haiti, Mr. Lacroix said. His remarks are available. And tomorrow, my guest will be Agnès Marcaillou, the Director of the UN Mine Action Service, along with Ambassador Christoph Huchsen, the permanent representative of Germany to the UN. And Germany is the most important donor to the UN Voluntary Trust Fund on Mine Action in 2017. And Ambassador Mohammed Hussein Bar Al-Hum, the permanent representative of Iraq to the UN, which, as you know, Iraq is very much an affected state by unexploded ordinances. Halas. Masuji.
Did you happen to see that particular thing that I sent you about Muslim bashing, Islamic bashing?
Yes, I saw what you sent me.
It was also on the news yesterday.
Yes, go
ahead. Do you
ahead.
have any reaction to that?
To what news yesterday?
That particular flyer that is being going around.
Any hate speech, any distribution of hate speech is to be condemned, and is something the Secretary General has often spoken out about, especially on issues relating to Islamophobia. Mr.
On Yemen, I just want to ask on Yemen, have the Houthis accepted the formula being presented to them by the United Nations, and have the Saudis sounded anything on Secretary General's proposal?
I think I would refer you back to what the Secretary General said in Geneva, which was that he was pleased with the report that he received from Martin Griffiths following his meetings in Riyadh and in Sana'a, and then Mr. Griffiths would now go to the UAE and Oman and other destinations, and again reiterated the call for all parties to engage substantively on political discussions and to come up with a political solution. Mr. Lee.
Sure. Thanks. Well, I want to ask about Israel and Haiti separately. On Israel, there's been this back and forth of a reported deal by the government with UNHCR to resettle these migrants. And I guess I wanted to know, I know it's a UNHCR thing, but it's a very high-profile refugee issue. And I wanted to know, is it your understanding that UNHCR had actually reached resettlement agreements with the countries named, Canada, Germany? What's the UN's, what was the deal?
I think what was the deal is Masoud, please. What was the deal is a question to be addressed to UNHCR. They've told us they've taken note of the announcement by the Prime Minister that he's suspending the plan for resettlement of Eritrean and Sudanese asylum seekers. They had learned through the media the agreement had been suspended on the evening of the same day it had been reached, and UNHCR has been in close touch with the Prime Minister's office and remains convinced that an agreement is a win-win solution for all sides. So I think all those questions should be addressed.
Does the Secretary General himself, this is one of the highest profile kind of, it raises a lot of issues about the right to resettlement. About
I mean, I think that's your characterization. I mean, there are issues, there are very important issues having to deal with migrants and refugees the world over, which need to be dealt with in a comprehensive manner. And that's why I think, as Brendan will talk about, the migration discussions that go on this week in New York are very important. As for the specificity of this particular deal, it's a question you need to address to UNHCR.
How about Nehru? I wasn't going to do this one, but Nehru has next week, or it's cut off a deal in which asylum seekers could appeal through the Australian court system and have their cases heard. Does he have a view of that? Is that going to leave a class of people with no appeal rights?
We've seen the issues relating to those asylum seekers on Nauru, I think, have not been dealt with in the best possible way. UNHCR has expressed its concern, and again, all these issues point to the need of a new global compact on migration and refugees. Yep.
On the Sahara issue, some media and news organizations indicated that the UN contested Morocco's affirmation contained.
Sorry, somebody has a phone that's.
Yeah. Saying on the Sahara issue, some media and press and news agencies indicated that the UN has contested Morocco's affirmation contained in the letter sent to the Security Council Sunday, and other media reported that the UN is even supporting Polisario in this regard. So what do you have to say about this?
We stand by what we said yesterday. We expect to have a bit more, maybe later today on the issue. The UN is not taking sides. The UN mission is reporting on what it sees. It's a very vast area they have to cover. They can only report on what they've seen. But again, this is not about taking sides. This is about reporting what we see, as the Secretary General will do in his report. But again, I expect to have a bit more later on this. Yep.
Yesterday you said that you've seen the press statements coming out of the Israeli government about not wanting to launch an independent, transparent investigation on Gaza. And you also said that we stand by our request. So do you now have a position on this rejection, or?
I stand on what I said yesterday. I'm not aware of any official.
There's an inherent contradiction between. I mean, it's quite clear that Israel. What is Israel's position?
No, I'm aware. I'm aware of the situation. Our call for an independent investigation stands.
I have a follow-up quickly. The Palestinians have said that they're going to continue to protest, that this wasn't a one-off thing, that they're going to protest through May 15th, which marks Land Day. So what we can expect that we can expect this to happen again with impunity on the Israeli part. What can the United Nations do in this situation?
What is important to us is that any demonstration be done peacefully. It is important also that children not be put in harm's way, whether by those who are protesting or by those or by security forces. That's the message that was delivered. It has been constantly delivered to all the parties involved, as Mr. Zerhoun told the Security Council on Friday, and that message remains the same. Mr. Uchardo.
About a specific North Korean ship that was blacklisted by the UN, and they mentioned a specific oil transfer with a Russian ship mid-October. Supposedly there was some comment came out about that today?
No, I have not. That may be best to ask the Security Council sanctions people.
Thank you, Stéphane. About Afrin, of the 183,000 civilians that have been displaced because of the military operation, do you know how many of them were able to return to their homes?
No, I
so
do not
far?
have those. I do not have those numbers. I can see if our colleagues in OCHA have them, but those numbers have not been shared with me, and I'm not even sure we have them.
And locals, like from the refugees, they are reporting that they are trying to return to Afrin, but Islamic jihadist groups, they have checkpoints, they don't allow them to return. And also there are reports that refugees from Eastern Ghouta are forced to go to Afrin, which constitute their accusation of attempt to change the demographic of that
I'm
area?
not in a position.
What is
to,
your view
I'm not.
on
I'm not in a position to verify, to confirm rather what you said. What is important is that there are a number of principles at play here. Is that people should not be forced to move, forced to return, or forced to leave anywhere. People should be able to choose where they live. People should be able to live in peace. There's continuing fighting in large parts of Syria, including in Afrin. The fate of civilians is one that our concern continues on their fate. We've had access to people who've left Afrin because of the fighting. We've gotten some information from them, but it is clear that the freedom of movements of civilians should not be impeded. Madame.
Thank you, Stéphane. There will be a summit tomorrow in the Turkish capital between the Turkish, Russian, and the Iranian presidents. I was wondering if the UN has any expectations from this summit.
We'll wait to see what comes out. Obviously, we hope that, for the parts that deal with Syria, we hope that all these discussions will move the process towards a political solution. Masoud, and then we'll come back in round two.
Yeah. Thank you, Stéphane. Stéphane, on this ongoing situation with the Palestinian children incarcerated by Israel, do you have any update on how many children now in Israeli custody?
No, sir. Not from what I've already told you. Yes.
Not more than 200?
I have no update from what I've told you.
Just as a follow-up, yesterday you talked about the MINURSO not seeing any movements of military elements. But I think what Morocco is referring to in his letter is not military movements, but the situation in the Gergerat area and the intention of the Polisario to transfer some.
The letter has been received. It's being studied. But as I said, I hope to have a bit more later on all of this. Mr. Lee.
Sure. But nothing has changed from what you said yesterday, just on that.
I just hope to have more tomorrow or later today. Tell me, what's the question?
Other question. I wanted to ask you about in following the Haiti meeting. Early in March, there was going to be that fundraising or whatever, the future of Haiti, including cholera meeting on the outskirts of New York City or in the suburbs. Didn't happen. What steps have been, given what you said about Mr. Raqqa talking about things getting better, have any steps been taken to reschedule that meeting? And is there, just to put it to bed, some have said that the SRSG Susan Page might either have heard the word PNG, might be PNG. Are you aware of that?
There's been no change that I can report on the leadership of MINUJUST. I know discussions are ongoing to try to set up a meeting, and we have regarding the investments in Haiti. And when I have something to share with you, I shall.
And I want to ask you, in Somalia, there are widely differing figures of how many of the Amazon peacekeepers were killed in the Shabab attack. Uganda says it's 4. Now they say 8. Some people say 59. Given that there is this UNSOS that I asked you about yesterday, what is the figure?
I don't have an independent figure from our end to report. Mr. Varma.